A man caught the Loch Ness Monster image using his sonar.
You said that according to the sonar image, it might just be one of the biggest things you've ever seen. What kind of size would we be talking about?
Well, I'll put my hands up and say I'm not a sonar expert, but been on the loch for about 9 years. We've got rain marine sonar, which was fitted to the Spirit of Loch Ness in 2020. And we picked up a large contact which made international news, and that was using a range of 300 metres. And we estimated that to be, well, Rain Marine actually estimated to be 8 to 10 metres long.
For nearly 90 years, the legend of the Loch Ness Monster has lived in the shadows, mocked by skeptics, worshipped by believers, and dismissed as fantasy. A blurry photo here, a shaky eyewitness there. But now, something has happened that is fundamentally different. This is not a trick of the light, not a floating log, not a wave illusion. This is cold, hard data from a machine that does not lie. It moved. It reacted. And for one brief moment in September 2024, it looked back. This recent sonar image has changed everything and left the world shocked.
So I said, we think we've discovered all the large mammals. We think we have. There's some animals at the bottom of the ocean. Occasionally one shows up. There's a new one.
It began on a cold, quiet afternoon in the Scottish Highlands, September 22nd, 2024. Sean Sloggy, a 30-year-old skipper with nearly a decade of experience on Loch Ness, was preparing his vessel for a routine tour. The boat was called the Spirit of Loch Ness, a twin-hulled pleasure craft operated by Cruise Loch Ness, a company that knows these dark waters better than almost anyone. Sloggy is not an excitable tourist with a shaky smartphone. He is a professional mariner. He has seen otters, seals, large fish, and floating debris 1,000 times. He knows the difference between a sonar glitch and a solid return. And on that afternoon, as he and maritime pilot Liam Mackenzie watched the display, the sonar lit up with something that made his blood run cold. I said, "What the hell is that?" Sloggy recalled in an interview with the Daily Mail. "It was bigger than anything else I've ever seen. We've seen all sorts of fish that shouldn't be here. But this was different. You should have felt the chills on the boat." The sonar reading came from a depth of nearly 100 meters, about 328 feet below the surface. That's deep, roughly halfway down to the loch's maximum depth of 750 feet. But it wasn't just the size that stunned them. It was the shape. The outline on the screen was elongated, massive, with a distinct protrusion at one end that many observers later noted bore an eerie, unmistakable resemblance to a plesiosaur, the long-necked marine reptile that has become the default image of the Loch Ness Monster for nearly a century. Now, let's talk about sonar technology for a moment, because this is crucial. Modern sonar systems, like the one aboard the Spirit of Loch Ness, use sound waves to see beneath the surface. The transducer sends out a pulse of sound. When that pulse hits a solid object, a rock, a fish, a log, or something else, it bounces back. The computer measures the time it took to return and turns that data into a visual image. Different colors on the screen represent different densities. Reds and oranges might indicate a hard, dense object. Blues and greens might be softer, like a school of fish. And certain specific color signatures can indicate pockets of air, which means lungs, or heat differences, which means metabolic activity. Sloggy noted that the object on his screen appeared in multiple colors, including those associated with trapped air and thermal warmth. That is a massive data point. It suggests that the large mass was not just a rock formation, not just a clump of decaying organic matter, but something living, something breathing, something warm in the frigid depths of Loch Ness, where the water temperature rarely rises above 42 degrees Fahrenheit, roughly 5.5 degrees Celsius. The contact remained visible for 2 to 3 minutes. That is an eternity in the world of sonar scanning. Most returns last seconds. This one lingered long enough for Sloggy and Mackenzie to stare at it, to process what they were seeing, and to capture a screenshot before the mysterious signature vanished as silently as it had appeared. When they turned the boat around to investigate, there was nothing on the surface. No wake, no debris, no bubbles. The loch had swallowed its secret again. Sloggy was adamant that his equipment was functioning properly. He has worked these waters for 9 years, and he knows how to read a sonar display. "Sonar doesn't lie," he told the Daily Mail. "The boat hasn't been on 5 whiskey distillery tours before going out on the loch. It's just doing its job." That line is a direct rebuttal to the inevitable skepticism. He is not drunk. He is not hallucinating. He is a professional doing his job, and the machine showed him something extraordinary. The location of the sighting adds another layer of credibility. The boat was near the mouth of the loch, close to where the River Ness flows out toward the sea at Inverness. Sloggy pointed out that this is a natural choke point, a hunting ground. Salmon and other migratory fish must pass through this area to enter or leave the loch. If you were a large, intelligent predator, this is exactly where you would wait. "There are fish in the loch that shouldn't be here," he said. "There are prehistoric creatures living in the loch and unknown codes of DNA, so there is room for mystery." This could change the angle of science on the loch. But how do you find out what it is? I've always known there's something there. What it is a mystery. But it definitely springs open people's imaginations. It's not just about tourism. There's real science in studying the loch. When asked to compare his sighting to the previous gold standard of sonar evidence, a massive contact from 2020 that was estimated to be 8 to 10 meters long, about 26 to 32 feet, and 1 meter wide, Sloggy made a chilling admission. The 2020 object was huge. But the 2024 object, he speculated, was a lot bigger than that. We are talking about something potentially exceeding 40 feet in length, moving with purpose, and emitting a heat signature that suggests a warm-blooded metabolism. This single sonar reading, captured by a routine tour boat on a routine afternoon, reignited the global debate about the Loch Ness Monster. The official register of sightings, maintained by the Loch Ness Centre in Drumnadrochit, has now logged over 1,157 reports. But none of them, not the grainy 1933 Hugh Gray photograph, not the 1934 surgeon's photo that was later exposed as a hoax involving a toy submarine, not the countless eyewitness claims, have carried the weight of cold, digital, verifiable sonar data. Until now. Just when the world thought the 2024 sonar reading might be a one-off anomaly, something even bigger happened. In the spring of 2025, a multidisciplinary team of scientists, marine biologists, and sonar technicians gathered at the edge of Loch Ness. They launched a follow-up mission to the famed 1987 Operation Deep Scan, that ambitious expedition that used 24 boats to sweep the loch. This new effort was called Project Deep Scan 2, and it was outfitted with the most advanced surveillance technology ever deployed in the region. High-resolution sonar arrays, autonomous underwater drones, thermal imaging cameras, and environmental DNA sampling tools that can detect a single cell in millions of liters of water. Their goal was simple: to catalog the loch's ecosystem with scientific precision, to finally answer the question that has haunted Scotland for 15 centuries. But what happened on the 4th day of the expedition sent whispers racing through the scientific world, and those whispers soon became shouts. Discovery number 1: the sonar anomaly. At exactly 6:42 a.m., a sonar operator monitoring the northern trench, a deep, narrow gouge in the loch bed, registered a colossal moving object. The target was nearly 30 feet in length, roughly 9 meters. That is the size of a fully grown humpback whale calf. But unlike typical sonar blips from schools of fish or drifting logs, this target did not fragment or fade. It stayed solid. It maintained a precise depth, approximately 230 feet below the surface. And it altered course with a fluidity that ruled out inanimate drift. It wasn't tumbling. It wasn't sinking. It was gliding. For nearly 3 minutes, the object stayed within tracking range, weaving just above the silted floor in a controlled, purposeful path. This was not just a sonar anomaly. This was behavior. The team immediately scrambled to deploy submersible drones. The loch's water is famously dark, stained a deep tea color by peat from the surrounding hills. Visibility is often less than a few feet. But one of the drones, equipped with high-intensity lights, managed to catch a fleeting silhouette. The footage, though partially distorted by pressure and light refraction, revealed an elongated, smooth figure with subtle curves and what appeared to be a fin or appendage moving in a rhythmic, undulating motion. Discovery number 2. The thermal signature. At the same time, the thermal imaging team was monitoring a separate screen. Loch Ness is cold. Its deep waters hover just above freezing. But in the exact location where the sonar had detected the object, the thermal cameras picked up something that defied explanation. A consistent, stable heat signature, warmer than the surrounding water by several degrees. And it wasn't a random patch of geothermal activity. It moved. It shifted. The infrared outline pulsated with subtle movements that corresponded precisely to the spot where sonar had indicated the creature's body. This is a game-changing revelation. For decades, the prevailing theory has been that if Nessie exists, she must be a cold-blooded reptile, a plesiosaur, or a giant amphibian, because that's what the silhouette looks like. But a cold-blooded animal in 42-degree water would be sluggish, nearly immobile. Its body temperature would match the water. Instead, this reading showed a vertebrate with an internal heat source, an endotherm, warm-blooded. That doesn't fit a plesiosaur. It fits a mammal, or something else entirely. Something science hasn't yet classified. The researchers began to whisper among themselves. What they were tracking was not just large. It was alive, and it was regulating its own body temperature in one of the coldest freshwater environments on Earth. Discovery number 3. The unknown DNA. The eDNA results were the final shock. Water samples collected during and immediately after the sighting were sealed in sterile containers and rushed to independent laboratories across the United Kingdom and continental Europe. Environmental DNA is a revolutionary method. Every creature that swims in the loch, every fish, every bird, every mammal, is constantly shedding cells, skin, scales, urine, feces. These cells contain DNA that floats freely in the water. By filtering large volumes of water and sequencing the genetic material, scientists can create a comprehensive census of every living thing in the loch without ever seeing a single animal. The results came back within days. As expected, the samples contained the DNA of native Atlantic salmon, brown trout, European eels, and various algae and bacteria. But there was something else, something unexpected. The laboratories independently confirmed the presence of DNA fragments from an aquatic vertebrate that did not match any entry in the global genetic database, not GenBank, not the barcode of life data system. Nothing. These sequences were not consistent with any known species in the loch. No eel, no salmon, no Arctic char, no Greenland shark, a species that some had speculated might have swum up the river and adapted to fresh water. The sequences were unique, unidentified, and they came from a vertebrate, an animal with a backbone. Whispers began to circulate within the research community. Could they have finally documented evidence of a species hidden for centuries? A cryptid? A living fossil? Or something entirely new to science? Officially, no formal taxonomic classification has been made yet. The scientific process requires peer review, replication, and often years of debate. But unofficially, among those present at Loch Ness that week, one belief rang louder than the others. Something extraordinary lives in those waters. And for the first time in history, we have the data to prove it. To understand the magnitude of these 2024 and 2025 discoveries, we have to place them in the long, strange history of the Loch Ness Monster. The earliest recorded sighting is not from the 1930s, but from the 6th century. In 565 AD, an Irish monk named Saint Columba was traveling through the Highlands when he encountered a group of Picts burying a man. The man had been killed by a water beast in the river Ness. According to the chronicles written by his biographer Adomnan, Columba sent a follower named Lugne to swim across the river to retrieve a boat. The beast rose from the water with a great roar, its jaws open, ready to strike. Columba raised his hand, made the sign of the cross, and commanded the creature, "Go no further. Do not touch the man. Depart at once." The beast fled, terrified. Scholars debate whether this was a literal account, a metaphor for paganism, or an embellishment. But it is the first written record of a monster in the Ness, and it has never been fully explained. For the next 13 centuries, the legend remained a local whisper. Then came the 1930s. In 1933, the Inverness Courier published a story about a couple named Aldi and John Mackay, who claimed to have seen an enormous animal rolling and plunging on the surface. The story went viral as a story could go in the pre-internet age. Newspapers around the world picked it up. The Loch Ness Monster was born as a global phenomenon. Just a few months later, in November 1933, a man named Hugh Gray took the first photograph of the creature while walking along the loch after church. His image, published in the Daily Express, is a blurry, abstract mess. Some say it shows a Labrador dog with a stick in its mouth. Others say it shows a double negative. But Gray insisted it was the monster, and he never wavered. Then came the surgeon's photograph of 1934. Captured by London physician Colonel Robert Kenneth Wilson, the grainy black-and-white image showed a long, elegant neck rising out of the water, with a small head attached. It looked exactly like a plesiosaur, a creature that science tells us has been extinct for 65 million years. For 60 years, this was the ultimate proof. Then, in 1994, a dying man named Chris Sperling confessed that the photograph was a hoax. It was a toy submarine from Woolworths, fitted with a head and neck sculpted from wood putty. The hoax was brilliant, and it permanently distorted the public's perception of what Nessie should look like. But the hoax did not erase the real sightings. In 1987, Operation Deep Scan deployed 24 boats across the loch, each equipped with the best sonar of the era. They detected 3 large, unexplained moving objects in the deep trench. The objects were solid. They moved against the current, and they were far larger than any known fish. When the boats returned to the coordinates, the objects had vanished. The data was inconclusive, but it was the first time large-scale scientific methodology had been applied to the mystery. In 2003, the BBC launched another major investigation, this time using over 600 sonar beams and GPS mapping. They scanned the loch from end to end. They found no evidence of large creatures. For many, that was the final nail in the coffin. But critics argued that the loch's steep walls, deep trenches, and silt-heavy water make it incredibly difficult to scan thoroughly. Not finding something is not the same as proving it doesn't exist. In 2018, Professor Neil Gemmell from the University of Otago in New Zealand conducted the most famous eDNA study to date. He and his team collected 250 water samples from various depths and locations. The results were stunning for two reasons. First, they found no plesiosaur DNA. Second, they found an overwhelming amount of eel DNA. Gemmell suggested that the monster myth might be explained by giant European eels, which can grow to impressive sizes and live for decades. The eel theory became the new scientific consensus. But in 2023, data scientist Flo Foxon ran the numbers using statistical models and found that the odds of encountering an eel large enough to explain the sonar returns, say 20 feet long, are essentially zero. The eel theory works for small disturbances, but not for 30-foot, warm-blooded sonar targets. So, after the 2024 sonar reading, the 2025 Project Deep Scan. 2 discoveries and 15 centuries of mystery. Where do we stand? We have 3 separate, independent lines of evidence pointing toward the same conclusion. First, we have Sean Sloggy's 2024 sonar image. A massive, warm-blooded, air-breathing object nearly 100 meters deep, visible for 3 minutes, captured on a modern sonar system that the operator swears was functioning perfectly. "Sonar doesn't lie," he said. And we have his chilling quote, "I've always known there's something there." Second, we have the 2025 expedition's multi-sensor confirmation. Sonar, thermal imaging, and submersible drone footage, all detecting a large endothermic vertebrate moving with purpose and navigation. The thermal signature alone is a smoking gun. Cold-blooded animals do not generate their own heat. Something in that loch is warm, and it is alive. Third, we have the eDNA results from the same 2025 expedition. DNA fragments from an aquatic vertebrate that does not match any known species on Earth. Not plesiosaur, not eel, not shark, not catfish. Something else. Something uncatalogued. Something that science cannot yet name. The official position of the scientific community remains cautious. Extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence. Peer review is ongoing. No taxonomic classification has been made. But the unofficial whispers among the researchers who were there that week are growing louder. They know what they saw. They know what the machines recorded. And they know that the old dismissal, "It's just a myth," is no longer scientifically tenable. Loch Ness is 23 miles long, nearly 800 feet deep, and holds more fresh water than all the lakes in England and Wales combined. It has underwater caves, deep trenches, and crevices that have never been fully explored. In 2016, a survey discovered a previously unknown crevice extending to nearly 900 feet, deeper than the official maximum. The loch is still revealing its secrets, and now the secrets are revealing themselves to our instruments. Sean Sloggy does not claim to have proven the monster is real. He is a humble boat captain, not a cryptozoologist, but he knows what he saw on that screen. He felt the chills on his boat. He heard the silence of the loch after the object disappeared, and he told the world, without hesitation, "Sonar doesn't lie." So, the next time you look at those dark, peaty waters, remember that moment. Remember the screen lighting up with a shape that should not exist. Remember the heat signature of something warm in the cold abyss. Remember the unknown DNA, the uncatalogued vertebrate, the creature that science cannot name. Somewhere down there, in the silence, in the dark, something is down there. We have not figured out what it is yet. But for the first time in 1,500 years, we have proof that it is real. The mystery of Loch Ness is not over. It has just entered its most exciting chapter. The day everything changed has come and gone. Now, we wait for the next ping, the next reading, the next moment when the myth blinks back and the monster waits. So, what are your thoughts on this mystery? Let us know in the comments below and subscribe to our channel for more content. Thanks for watching.